Hey, Guitar Nerd is here with another video on Elden Ring, specifically on how to beat Radagon and the Elden Beast as an intelligence build, and that's without abusing any cheesy game-breaking glitches too. With that said though, let's go ahead and first go over the build that I used for this fight. So for weapons, I'm using the Misericord Dagger with the Bloodhound Step Ash of War to more easily dodge attacks while quickly covering a large amount of distance. I'm also using the Clayman's Harpoon with the Ice Spear Ash of War to do some quick range damage. And although you could use the Lusat Staff for extra damage, I'd still recommend using the Carrion Regal Scepter given you'll need the extra FP for how much longer this fight is compared to most other boss fights. If you're interested in doing a Faith Intelligence build for New Game Plus, then you could use a Seal to cast any incantations for buffs if nothing else, but Radagon has 0 resistance to fire-based attacks, so Black Flame incantations are not a bad option either. I do have my endurance set to 30 to equip some heavier armor, but my only recommendation is to use a Snow Witch hat for the 10% buff to frost sorceries like a Duelist Moonblade and Ranni's Dark Moon if you plan on using those spells. For talismans, I'd suggest using the Green Turtle Talisman to increase your stamina speed by about 18% and the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman to reduce your physical damage taken by 20%. The Crimson Seed Talisman is a good option for this long fight too, since it boosts your HP restoration from your flask by 20%, and lastly, we'll of course use the Graven Mask Talisman to boost sorcery damage by 8%. And don't forget to use the Cerulean Hidden and Magic Shrouding Cracked Tears in your Flask of Wondrous Physics so you can get infinite FP for 15 seconds while boosting your magic attacks by 20%. I also highly recommend using Black Knife Tish as your Spirit Summon for this fight as well. Aside from a Duelist Moonblade and Ranni's Dark Moon, I'd consider using Terra Magica and any incantations you can use for buffs or fire damage. Healing incantations may not be a bad option either if you find yourself going through your flask too much, but if you're strictly sticking with spells, then Glintstone, Comet Shard, and the Stars of Ruin are always good ranged options too. Now my stats are a little off compared to most intelligence builds since I've been working on turning it into a Faith Intelligence build instead, but ultimately, I'd recommend at least 40 Vigor, 23 Mind, and 70 Intelligence at minimum for this fight for most intelligence builds. Having Endurance over 25 can provide for more armor options while helping with having enough stamina to keep dodging too, but don't forget that Dexterity can also be used to increase spell casting speed. So as you can see, Radagon can block spells with insanely high damage reduction and will attack aggressively rather quickly, so be sure to summon Black Knife Tish as your spirit summon as soon as possible so you can have a good distraction while you attack. Although Radagon is immune to blood loss, he is not immune to frostbite and is more susceptible to fire damage too, so using fire grease on your weapons may be a good option to consider. In fact, doing any fire damage at all is a great way to reset frostbite, so I'd highly recommend trying it out. In addition, if you cast a quick couple rounds of Ranni's Dark Moon, it can nerf Radagon's magic negation by 10%, and if you cause frostbite with it, you'll actually reduce his magic negation by another 20%, but this nerf only lasts for 1 minute, so be sure to get in as many attacks as possible to speed up the fight, and just be ready to dodge his attacks as needed too. Either way, Ranni's Dark Moon and the Ice Spear Ash of War are more than enough to have this part of the fight in the bag in no time given how much damage they can dish out alone. But there are obviously plenty of other great ice and fire weapons and spells that can make this fight easier too, so don't be afraid to experiment. In fact, if you are curious about other ice-fire builds, then feel free to subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications, since that will be one of the videos I plan on covering soon as well. But regardless, if you do have any trouble with this fight, then feel free to check out this endgame OP guide in case you may have missed anything, and I'm sure you'll be able to get it done with some more ease. Now that we have defeated Radagon, we now have to deal with the Elden Beast, and if you finish the first part of the fight fast enough, you should be able to get some more use out of Tish, which if you weren't sold on using her as your spirit summon before, then you should definitely at least consider her now, given how quickly she can dish out a good chunk of damage. Even with how tanky she can be though, she'll likely bite the dust after getting hit with some of the big holy damage attacks that the Elden Beast does, so be sure to take advantage of her as a distraction as much as possible by playing aggressively. Just be careful to dodge the numerous different melee and holy attacks you'll come across in the process, heal up as needed, and continue attacking when you can, and you should be good to go. If you do find yourself running out of healing flasks, then just remember to have the Crimson Seed Talisman equipped and consider using healing incantations if possible. If you are still having trouble with this fight and are caught up on my OP guides, then you can always level up more with the go-to in-game rune farm area too. On another side note, I know that Elden Beast can move around a lot, so you may notice that I've trimmed out some parts of the gameplay in order to cut down on time where I'm just trying to close some distance for the fight. But with that said though, I'll let the gameplay speak for itself from here. And that is it. Now that we have defeated the last boss fight for Elden Ring, you may think that we are done with the game, but there are still plenty of upgrades and equipment to get by starting a new playthrough, which I'm sure will be worth it later on for future updates and for DLC too whenever it will become available. So feel free to follow along by subscribing to the channel, as I have plenty more videos and build guides to cover to help prep for any updates that come out later down the road. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, but until next time, happy gaming!